Okay, so from verse 1 to 9 of chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Arjuna has this question. So finally, Krishna, what are you telling? Should I fight? Should I engage in fruitive action work, or should I renounce everything and follow the path of jnana? So Krishna responds to him saying there are two types of devotees: people who follow the empirical path or philosophical path, and the others who follow the devotional path. Okay, so Krishna is saying both paths are there, but for people who merely abstain from work, renounce work, there's no absolute confirmation that they are absolutely free from all sins. Just because you abstain from work does not make you free from all reactions. Reactions come even if you're not doing nothing. And why do reactions come? Because it's impossible for a person to remain inactive, right? Even if your senses are completely shut down, even your mind still can continue working. So reactions come to you even if you're doing nothing, right? So abstaining from work is not the answer, right? Rather, Krishna is saying one who abstains, restrains their senses of action, but whose minds dwell on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a mithyachari or a pretender. Okay, so the role of the mind is very important. Now, externally, we might show like we have given up everything, but if your mind is still active on thinking of sense objects, then you're called as a mithyachari. And in that context, we try to explain to you other day on what's the difference between a mithyachari and a devotee who's trying to control their mind, right? So one who is pretends externally to be a renunciant, but internally the mind is constantly thinking about sense objects. He's a pretender, versus a devotee who externally might be trying to cut down things, but if they're still internally trying to restrain themselves, trying to know that they are not the master, they're the servant, if in that mood they try to control their mind, that is not a mithyachari. He's still a devotee of the Lord or a sadhaka, right? So there's a difference. On the other hand, if a sincere devotee tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga, so Krishna is now starting to talk about karma yoga. He says one who does karma yoga or active action without attachment to what? Without attachment to the work or the reaction, right? So no attachment to the work they're doing there, but still they're doing karma yoga. He says that kind of person is much better than a renunciant, right? So Krishna is finally saying perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working at all, and one cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. So finally in verse 9 he says work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, right? Any work that is done for Vishnu has to be done, because such work does not create bondage. But any work that is not done as a sacrifice to Vishnu will create bondage. And bondage is what? Bondage is something that is binding us to material earth, right? Sorry, material world. It could be any of the planets within the material world, does not matter. But anything that is binding then is something that will keep us back in this cycle of life and death. So that's where we stopped last on Monday. So are there any questions on anything that we discussed on Monday, or anything that you wanted to just bring up? If not, we'll go to verse 10. I request Vidya Mataji if you could read this verse.
Yes, Mataji. Sorry, I'm not able to switch on my video.
Okay.
Sahana Prajasrishtva Purovacha Prajapati Anena Prasavishyadvam Esha Vosva Ishtakamadok. Translation. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Now, Krishna has said that everything should be done as a sacrifice to Vishnu. So, Krishna is now saying people who are materialistically inclined, right? They do different activities. They pray to this god, that god. So, how do such people uh, do sacrifices for Vishnu? What is the connection between the demigod worship and their ultimate connection with Vishnu? So, in other words, he's talking about karma kanda activities in this verse. Okay, so from verse 10 to verse 16, Krishna is talking about how karma kanda can also be lead to karma yoga eventually. Okay, so how can you get from kanda to karma yoga? So verse 10 says that the Vedas suggest different kinds of fire sacrifice, different types of tapasya, penances. Do this sacrifice, this god will be happy. So there's a section of Vedas that deal completely with karma kanda. Okay, so it tells you which demigod to worship and how to please them. So, in return, in this Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, okay, it's saying that by doing these offerings to the demigod, okay, you can get something in return from the demigods, right? So, these something in return is always usually materialistic desires. So, you offer offerings to the demigod with some material desires, and they return in return will give you back something, whatever you please. Okay, so that's a kind of transaction we have with demigods. But is that really the purpose of the Vedas, right? Is the Vedas there primarily to take care of our material happiness? So that is a question that we need to get an answer to. So let's try to understand this. Okay, so here it says in the purport, the material creation by the Lord of creatures, Vishnu, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so it's saying that all the material planets, the 14 different material planets, is a chance given to every living being to come back to Godhead. It's not a place for a sense enjoyment. It's not a place, where you can forget the Lord and be happy forever. If you remember God, then you have to do so many austerities, penances. No, it's a place where you should be doing austerities and penances, and in that way going back to Godhead. Okay, so all living entities within the material creation are conditioned by the material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relation to Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. The Vedic principles are to help us remember this eternal relation. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedecha Sarver Aham Eva Vedha. The Lord says that the purpose of the Veda is to understand Him. Okay, so the purpose is to understand or remember Krishna. So while Karma Kanda section caters to a certain a class of people who have more materialistic tendencies. Okay, but it's not the only purpose of Vedas. It's not there only to cater to the people of materialistic tendencies. So instead, uh, this Ved, we should also remember that the Vedas is also there for achieving higher purpose as well, right? So it caters to all class of people, even the ones who want to focus purely on materialistic activities and the people who want to focus on the higher purpose of human life. So how does that happen? Because even when Vedas is saying certain, steps or processes to be followed by the karma kanda activities, it is telling that, instead of, like, for example, this is some example I've quite often mentioned in the second chapter as well. Like, for example, if people have a tendency to eat meat or non-vegetarian food almost every day, there are many people who do that, right? Today, without any kind of yagna or sacrifice, they'll just order food, Swiggy, Zomato, whatever, or cook at home in the kitchen, and they consume that non-vegetarian food. And in turn, such kind of eating propensities give us lot of sins, material sins, which will only take us back to lower forms of living entity or living forms, right? Animal forms. Because every animal we eat today, that animal will be given an opportunity in future to give us the same treatment. Like if you kill or you consume a chicken or a goat today, the same animal, the same jiva will in their next life will have a form where they can do the same to you. So eating non-vegetarian food is in one sense giving us reactions where we'll be pushed to a lower form of living entity in the next life. So what does the Vedas do instead? It says instead of, eating non-vegetarian food every day, do like this, right? You can offer it to one of the Devis. There are many in the 33 crore versions of Devis. There are some Devis who can where especially in the villages and the smaller cities, you'll have different kind of Devis and the forms of Mother Durga. So they say offer meat to them, and this puja will happen once in a year. Then that food that is offered to the Devi, then you can have that, right? Or any intoxicated beverage, you can have that when it is offered to the Devi. Now, of course, Mother Durga herself does not consume a Vaishnavic food because she's a Vaishnavi. Remember, she's a Vaishnava Devi. So but she'll have a lot of ganas around her, people, devis and rakshasas who consume non-vegetarian food, or the lower forms of God who do consume non-vegetarian food, who are not complete Vaishnavas. So this offering that is done to Kali will be accepted by the lower forms of or ganas or jivas like that. So that is what we offer. So when Vedas say offer to this goddess on a certain day of the year, certain hour, so it's actually giving you a way to, some way satisfy the tongue, but also it's making such a tedious process that sometimes people might think, is it really needed for me to consume this non-veg then? Because I have to go through such a tedious process to consume this meat. Isn't it just easier? I have lived almost for a year or half a year without consuming meat. Isn't it easy for me to just give it up? Right? So slowly, 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 like this, because of some kind of austerities that you're doing, because you're following the Vedas, the sinful reactions that come your way slowly reducing, right? And when the sinful reaction reduces, what happens? Your heart is clearing up. Slowly, it becomes acceptable for you to completely give up non-vegetarian food or intoxication, right? So that clearing of heart that happens, it happens when a person slowly goes from tamoguna to a higher mode, which is rajoguna, and to a higher mode, which is called as sattva guna, right? And when a person is in sattva guna, finally they can understand what the real intention of the Vedas is. Right. And slowly they are able to understand that, there's no point in worshipping the demigods just on their own. I should offer the same prayer to the Supreme Lord because He's ultimate, He's the, uh, uh, one who is a Yagna Purusha. Vishnu is Yagna Purusha himself. So, like this kind of knowledge where we transcend even sattva guna and then reach complete transcendence, transcend all the three modes. That's the level the Vedas can take us to, right? But if we limit ourselves to karma kanda activities, then that's where we stay, right? Further, in the same purport, let me take a look here. So here it says, by the performance of yagna, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and becomes godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtana Yagna, the chanting of the names of the god, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures. And this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. Sankirtana Yagna and Krishna consciousness go well together. Sri Krishna in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam as follows, with special reference to the Sankirtana Yagna. Krishna Varnam Tvishavar Krishnam Sango Panghastra Prasadham Yagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumedasaha. In the age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtana Yagna. Other yagnas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in the age of Kali, but the Sankirtana Yagna is easy and sublime for all purposes as recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 14. Okay, so all the other this purport Srila Prabhupada is specifying that, it's not easy to follow all the processes mentioned in the Vedas also. Rather, it's easy to just follow the Sankirtana Yagna. And that way, it's easy to go back to Godhead as well. Okay, so that's where verse 10 is. Let's move to verse 11.
देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमावप्स्यथ. Translation: the demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So, when we do yagna, so remember Krishna is now starting with karma kanda activities where he's saying pray to the demigods. Okay. So, he's also laying out the process how worship to demigod works. He's saying when the demigods are pleased by the sacrifices, they will in turn also please you. Okay. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigod, prosperity will reign. Right? How to understand this verse. So, Devatas, we should remember, they get their strength by the yagnas we perform. Okay. And in return, what do the Devatas do? If they are strong enough to, because of our yagnas, then they take care of the humans who are taking care of them. So there is cooperation between Devatas and men in that case. Okay. So the demigods are empowered administrators of material affairs. Demigods are empowered administrators. Now, who has empowered them? Vishnu himself, Krishna himself. So they are empowered. They are not powered. They are not powerful on their own, but they are empowered or delegates of the Supreme Lord. Okay, the supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions for maintaining the body and soul of every living entity is entrusted to the demigods, who are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their pleasure and displeasure are dependent on the performance of yagnas by the human beings. Some of the yagnas are meant to satisfy particular demigods, but even in doing so, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yagnas as the chief beneficiary. Okay, so because Vishnu is empowering them to do certain tasks. So, so in turn, if you're trying to please the demigods, then so any offering done to the demigod is ultimately going to Krishna himself, because he's the yagna purusha, right? He's the chief beneficiary of all the yagnas that we do. How to understand this? So, when you perform certain yagnas, we might do it for a certain demigod, but ultimately the main beneficiary of the yagna is Vishnu, like that as mentioned in the purport. So just like the demigods become strong, okay, by performing this yagna, what do you think about this? Does Vishnu also need yagnas then to be powerful? Is it dependent on the yagna? Does he also get strength from the yagnas that we do?
No, Mataji, I think Bhakti Yoga is a way of strengthening Vishnu. I mean, in the sense that.
So you're saying by performing Bhakti Yoga, Vishnu will become strong?
We will become stronger through Vishnu.
No, I understand my question, right? The Devatas become strong by performing of different yagnas by the human beings, right?
Okay.
So does Vishnu also, because he's a chief beneficiary of the yagna, so does Vishnu also become strong by,
No,
is it
Mataji.
dependent on these yagnas to be strong?
No.
No, Mataji.
All agree, or some other version of the answer?
No, he's the source
No,
of everything.
he's already strong.
Source
Yes.
of
The Supreme Personality. Yeah.
Yes.
Supreme personality, so he doesn't require
Yeah,
our.
one of the opulence of Lord Vishnu is all strength. Without our yagna or not, he's not dependent on our yagna to be strong. In fact, he's giving the option of doing the yagnas for the benefit of human beings and for the benefit of demigods, right? This is a process he's prescribed so that we take care of each other. The beings take care of the demigods, and the demigods take care of the humans in turn. So if we have this sense of cooperation between us, then both of us are taken care of. The Lord Vishnu does not have to come personally and take care of the demigods and the human beings. But if there's no cooperation, then there's other reactions. What are those reactions? We'll also understand that. But just because this verse is saying that, you know, the yagnas are empowering the demigods, we should remember that Vishnu does not fall in the same category. He is above and beyond all these yagnas. Even bhakti yoga that we have today is not for Vishnu, it's for us, right? It's an opportunity given for us to go back to Godhead. So it's a way to empower us to go back to Godhead. So whether we do bhakti yoga or not, Krishna will be happy if we do bhakti yoga, but it's not, he's got nothing to, get. It's just that he's happy to have the soul come back to him, to the original owner. Beyond that, he has no personal motivation that, you know, I'll become strong, or, you know, my the soul's coming back will give me some special strength. No, nothing like that. He's all powerful with or without us, right? Just give me a second. So here it says the performance of yagna has many side benefits, ultimately leading to the liberation from material bondage. By performance of yagnas, all activities become purified, as it is stated in the Vedas. Ahara shuddhau sattva shuddhau dhruva smriti, smriti labdhe sarva grantinam vipramokshaha. By performance of yagna, one's eatables become sanctified, and by eating sanctified foodstuff, one's very existence become purified. By the purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory become sanctified. And when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation. And all these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present day society. Right? So you can see how doing yagna, it's not just empowering giving strength to the devatas, but is giving us special powers as well. It is slowly removing all our sinful nature. Because when we engage more and more in yagna, then we're having prasadam that is offered to the Lord. So like this, when offer that is a food that is sanctified is consumed by us, honored by us, slowly our finer cells in the brain becomes Krishna conscious. It's awakened to spiritual living, and that way our consciousness is awakened, our memory is awakened, and then we have a deep desire within to go back to Krishna. So that's very important. That's a great necessity of the present day society, as Srila Prabhupada says. Okay, let's go to verse 12.
Hare Krishna Mataji, why is then it is said that Vishnu is the ultimate beneficiary? What is the meaning of that statement then?
We'll understand that. By the end of the chapter, chapter 3, if you don't get an answer, just remind me to answer that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Verse 12.
Lata Mataji. She's not there.
Not there?
No.
Is there anyone who's not been assigned a verse today?
Maya Mataji.
Sumit Prabhu, go ahead.
Ishtan bhogan hi wo deva dashyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattan apradhyebhyo yo bhungte stena evasah. Translation: in charge of various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Hare Krishna. Mata.
Hare Krishna. So now let's understand who these demigods are. And this might answer your question as well, Jayalakshmi Mataji. Who are these demigods and why they should be satisfied? So demigods or devatas, like I said, are delegates of the Lord. right? Think of the prime minister. Now, within the prime minister, he has various cabinet ministers. He has defense minister, we have the home minister, foreign minister, railway minister, and child and women welfare minister, right? So different cabinets. And what does the prime minister do? He cannot personally take care of these different cabinets. So what he does, he delegates a very eligible person to take care of each of these profiles for him. Right. So one person is taking care of defense, one is taking care of the home ministry, one is doing the foreign ministry. So like this, different people are assigned certain duties by the prime minister. Right. So these ministers represents the prime individually, they represent the prime minister. They can talk on behalf of the prime minister for when it comes to certain responsibilities. Similarly, the demigods are we can understand them as the delegates of Vishnu. Right. He has given us Chandra, Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna, Vayu, Shiva, Parvati. So each of them are delegated certain task in this material planet, right? So, so do we need to please each demigod then and perform all these different yagnas to please each god? Ideally, no, right? If we please the prime minister, then all the ministers are pleased. But if you say, no, I don't want to deal with the prime minister, I have some issue with the railway ministry, let me just go to that railway minister and then talk to him. That is also fine, because ultimately the railway minister will do exactly what the prime minister is supposed to, is or has authorized him to do. Right. So any task that is approved by the railway minister is something that the prime minister will also approve eventually. Right. And they will have some level of understanding that this is what in the scope of which you can approve, and beyond that you'll have to come to me. So like this. So if Krishna is pleased, then he will allow the different devatas that when we are pleasing the different devatas, and they're doing the activities per his instructions. So Krishna is pleased that way because they are all doing what is delegated to them. So if Krishna is pleased by following the path of Krishna consciousness, then all the other demigods becomes automatically pleased. Similarly, right? Just like when all the different cabinet ministers do their task diligently, Krishna is pleased. Similarly, when we are all following the path of Krishna consciousness and you're doing all these yagnas to different demigods, then automatically when the demigods are taking care of us, Krishna is also pleased. Right? But there are people who don't want to surrender to Krishna directly. So they instead prefer worshipping different demigods. For them, Vedas are saying that perform all these different yagnas. So the same outcome can be achieved by performing Sankirtana yagna also, right? So Vedas talk about different fire yagnas, but for Kali Yuga, the chief form of yagna is Sankirtana yagna. But for whatever reason, if Sankirtana yagna is not being performed, then one must, in some way or the other, please the demigods, right? By performing these different yagnas and as prescribed by the Vedas. And ultimately, because Vedas is also coming from Krishna, Vyasadeva, and he's told them that, by doing this, you can please the demigods. And in turn, because all these activities that are performed by the demigods are empowered by the Lord, so in turn, they are acting for the Supreme Lord. Right? So that way, Krishna becomes this chief beneficiary of any yagna. Even if you're doing the yagna for a demigod, he becomes the chief beneficiary. But this, remember, is especially for people who do not want to worship Krishna directly. Right? When demigods are happy by the performance of yagna and by performance of prescribed duties, and they in turn will do different things like timely rain, sun is shining in the right season, there's no floods, no drought. Okay, grains are growing timely, fruits are coming tastier because the moon gives the rasas to the fruits and vegetables in the night, and the rivers are all nourished, filled with minerals and metals. So this way, the demigods in turn take care of us, right? Let's read this. The demigods are authorized supplying agent on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of the prescribed yagnas. In the Vedas, there are different kind of yagnas prescribed for the different kind of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigod is recommended. According to the different material qualities of the person concerned, different type of yagnas are recommended in the Vedas. Okay, worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature, and before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals are recommended. But for those who are in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. But ultimately, all yagnas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary men, at least 5 yagnas known as Pancha Mahayagna are necessary. Okay. Now, what is this Pancha Mahayagna? Now, these are 5 types of yagna that a grahastha or a materialistic person who's not worshipping Krishna directly has to do. Right. So, anyone who is worshipping Krishna can overlook it. But if you're not completely surrendered to Krishna, you don't completely believe that Krishna, will take care of me. So that kind of surrender and faith is not there. Then this Pancha Mahayagna must be done. Now, what is Pancha Mahayagna? Now, these are yagnas that is supposed to be done by, especially by grahasthas or materialistic tendency people, to devatas, to pitra, to manusha, other jivas. So pitra is all the, Pitru offering, Paksha offering that we do. So thanking the Pitru Devatas, and they in turn, all the offerings or oblations we give to the Pitru Devatas, they'll pass it on to our ancestors. So this is a way for us to thank our ancestors for taking care of us in a certain way, because we are there in this material planet. We have this human body because of their blessings. Or we are living a certain kind of lifestyle in this current day and time because of something that they gave us previously, some materialistic wealth or whatever it is. So it's some way we take care of them by offering the Pitru Paksha oblations. Right, so that's one kind of yajna. And then to the devatas, there are different types of devatas. So devatas this is also a way for thanking the devatas for timely rain, for taking care of us with the right amount of sun, rain, water, right? Or even while you're building a house. Today's apartments, they have their foundation going so deep inside the ground. So the different kind of jivas, different krimikitas, all the insects within, germs within, bacteria, so many jivas are getting killed in that process. Right. So whenever there's a housewarming ceremony, especially, you'll have a yagna that is done, that is to thank the devatas. Right. Similarly, when you're building doors for the houses or windows, there'll be trees that are cut. So there's a different types of yagnas that we do during housewarming to especially thank the Vana Devatas for giving us different resources. And also because we are living here, right? And there are so many activities we do on the material work, work-wise or even just living. Our wastage from the houses, they go join some river sewage system and they drain into earth, right? Or some factories, they leak all these dyes and unwanted things into water. So a lot of ugra karma is happening around us, right? So this is also Pancha Mahayagna is also a way to apologize for all the anarthas that we are doing while we are living, and sins are coming for these just by existing like this. And this Pancha Mahayagna then is a way to offer apologies for the different devatas for disturbing them in different ways. And then there is yagna done for other, it's called the Bhuta yagna. Bhuta is for other jivas, like the animals, trees around us, like that. Then there's Manushya yagna. Manushya yagna is other human beings. simple things like Atiti Devo Bhava, we say, like whenever guests come, we offer them some little water, food, or even otherwise, there are people around us in the society who we cannot live without them. Like it could be the BBMP people. Without them actively around us, there's no way we can live in a society like we do in cities, right? Or we do different kind of philanthropy work to support certain causes. This is a different types of Manushya Yagna. Okay, so it's a way to thank the other jivas. It's a way to acknowledge that our existence is not possible without the other jivas around us, right? And then finally, there's the Brahma Yagna. This is a yagna that is done by the study of scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are the 5 kinds of Brahma Yagna. So these are the different kinds of yagna a jiva should do while they live in this human form. And it's especially for people with the materialistic tendencies and who are not doing direct service to the Lord, right? So grahasthas must primarily do these yagnas, right? And sannyasis, they are not required to do these yagnas, but understand that sannyasis are not, and even brahmacharis for that matter, are not required to do these yagnas because they have a very reduced form of living, very sacrificed form of living. Like the saffron clothes that a sannyasi wears is an indication that they've already sacrificed everything, right? So their living itself is a yagna. So like that, but grahasthas are not like that. We live a very luxurious life. We eat nice food. We take care of our different families and extended families, and that way we are throwing some of our responsibility on these devatas, pitra, other manushas. So they are also carrying the burden of us existence in this planet, right? So this is why Pancha Mahayagna must be performed whenever possible by grahasthas, especially if you're not doing direct Krishna worship. Okay, so this is how you understand it. Just give me a second. So this verse is also saying, but he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigod in return is certainly a thief. Okay, so how to understand this? So what it means over here is just like when you pay taxes to the government, right? You pay your monthly taxes, and then the government is in turn building roads around us, right? And taking care of different security aspects. If there's a war in the border, then all that security, it's taking care of our responsibility of us being safe by investing in certain things versus not. So, like this, the money we pay as taxes is taking care of us, right? Similarly, does that process end there? I pay my tax one time, now I should be taken care for the lifetime? Doesn't work like that. Every month. So we pay taxes, the government takes care of us, and we continue paying because they're taking care of us, then we pay taxes again, and then they continue taking care of us, right? So similarly, even with demigods, when we are doing yagna, okay, and they are happy with us, they take care of us, but we take what they give us, like the fruits and grains and different kinds of minerals. We take all the richness that they provide, then if we forget about them completely, then Krishna is saying then we are like thieves, right? Because the demigods are giving us something, then we'll have to give them, do yagnas, more yagnas, whatever they have given to us. With those resources, we have to do further yagnas so that we maintain the demigods. That's the cooperation that Krishna is talking between demigods and humans, right? So this way, we take care of them and they take care of us. And in turn, if this taking care or the cooperation is not there, then what are the results? We see all the natural calamities around us. We see floods, we see drought, we see different pandemics around us, right? Recently, Bangalore, even last year, Bangalore went through this water scarcity situation where there's no water. Daily water is also, everybody's getting water through tankers, all contaminated water, right? There was this forest fire in Los Angeles last year. so these are the different calamities we see happening around us. Now, when we see these reactions, we should know that devatas are not happy. We are not doing Krishna worship also. We are not doing demigod worship also. So ultimately, all these things are happening around us. Reactions are happening, right? Because we are not doing yagnas. We are behaving like thieves, right? We are keeping what we think is required for us, but in turn, we are not giving back to the devatas, right? And a big example of this was the COVID pandemic in 2020 when we had that. Everyone was scared to breathe at that point, right? Everybody almost thought that they are going to pass away because everybody in the neighborhood was dying just because they were breathing the air. We were in that situation, but after going through that situation, people have not wakened up yet. They think that they can continue living like this. They'll forget about yagnas, they'll forget about all these other things that we have to do for the Lord, Supreme Lord, and we'll continue living our in sense gratification, because already that phase has passed out from our head, right? We are back to living a life of in oblivion. We want to forget about our prescribed duties. So that is human life. Whatever the little sense of happiness we are getting, it's easy to remember that, and we quickly want to forget what all the bad things that are going on around us. But these bad things, or the mass, pandemic, or the different natural activities that's happening, it's because we should remember, because the devatas are not happy. Okay, we are not doing enough. So, just give me a second. One should know, however, that all the necessities of life that a human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Take, for example, all the vegetables, eatables of the human society. These eatables include grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, etc. For the person in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians, like meat, none of which can be manufactured by men. Men cannot manufacture meat, right? Where does meat come from? It's also provided by God. Then again, take the example heat, light, water, air, etc., which are all necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, etc., without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on the supplies from the Lord. Even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord, with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely liberation from the material struggles of existence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yagnas. Okay, so that's the purpose of doing yagnas, that eventually you use what you want to use from the material, but in turn, remember that it's coming from the Supreme Lord, or it's coming from the agents of the Lord, and these are made available for you so that you can get to the forget about the small details, because you will be taken care of, but take care of the bigger requirement, which is liberation. Right. So by taking care of this bigger requirement, which for which you have this human life, and that's the purpose of performing yagnas. Yagnas are a way of slowly elevating ourselves from our lowest existence to higher level of existence. And in that higher level of existence, finally you can execute what your human life is for, right? And stop worrying about the small things that are bothering us all the time. And that is possible when you do timely yagnas, and then this all this disturbance around us will reduce. That is a truth, because whenever we do some kind of yagna, even if it's for the demigods, they will slowly try to eliminate all this disturbance around us. So things that is taking a lot of time for you today, will then you'll notice that those activities can be done quickly without much repetitions or failures. So similarly, Sankirtana Yagna, when it's done for the Lord, you'll also see the same reaction. When you do a Sankirtana Yagna for the Lord, all these things that you constantly keep disturbing you, that feels very undoable, suddenly seems like it was so easy to do, right? So it happens because Krishna is personally eliminating all this disturbance, which is making us easy to focus on the Lord. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. The gross materialistic thieves have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yagnas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yagna, namely the Sankirtana yagna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principle of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so let's move to the next verse, verse 13.
Yeah. यज्ञशिष्टिंस यज्ञशिष्टा सिंह सन्तु मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषै भु- भुञ्जन्ते ते दिवि जन्ते ते दिवि अघं पापये पाचन्ति आत्मकरं कारणात्. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sensation, sense enjoyment verily eat only sin.
Hmm. So it's a very important message. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for the sacrifice, right? And others who prepare, and this sacrifice is still talking about yagna. Okay, so others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sins. Okay, so everyone who eats food that is not offered to the Lord in a yagna, then they are only eating sin. Now, does that mean veg, non-veg food? Does it make any kind of distinction here? No, it says any food, right? Non-veg understood there is sin anyway, but even vegetarian food which is not offered in yagna to the Lord, then even that is sinful. So some devotees might have this question then, can I buy food from outside, offer it to the Lord, and then eat? Is there sin in that food? What do you think about that? Is it okay?
It's not okay, Mataji.
It's not okay.
Because it's not made with that intention.
Mm. S- uh, I know in North India mostly we've seen even Prabhupada said offering outside sweets, milk sweets especially, that can be offered to the Lord, but any other kind of food done by non-devotees, right? Now, think of the situations in which they cook, right? Sometimes they'll be watching some song that's playing in the background. They're listening to some tamasic version of, some songs. Their mindset is not in sattvic mode, right? Or they're fighting, they're angrily discussing something, and then they're cooking, and they're listening to something vulgar going on in the TV and or on the radio they're talking to each other on some nonsense topics while you're cooking. Sometimes they may even visit the restroom, pass stool, and then they'll continue cooking, right? Now, can this food, even from a hygienic standard, right? If we consider this food is not hygienic enough, it's not cooked in a hygienic mental or physical state to be offered to the Lord. But if it's not even about hygienic, it's not been cooked by a devotee of the Lord, right? There are devotees who don't eat food. Like if it's not cooked in their own kitchen, they'll not even eat outside, right? That's the standard of of a true brahmana. Like I there's a family in Melkote. They were once traveling to Kerala, and on the way back the car broke. They were supposed to reach they had crossed the borders of Mysore. They were supposed to reach Melkote the same night, but the car broke, and they could not reach on time, so they had to stay somewhere that night, and next afternoon they reached Melkote, right? So this happened, and my Prabhu was asking them, "How did you manage prasadam?" Because this family does not eat anything that's not cooked in their own kitchen and offered to the Lord. And the this person said, "We didn't eat outside. Night they didn't eat, morning they didn't eat, afternoon they didn't eat. After coming back home, they took bath, freshened up, then they cooked, offered, and then consumed something." Right? That's the standard of a devotee. because they don't even want to eat something that is not offered to the Lord. That is one standard. But also another factor is what's the hygiene and the mental standard of a person who's cooking the food. Is this food offerable to the Lord? Right? So any food which is cooked by an outsider, and we even if you offer it, does not mean that Krishna is like a prasadam making machine. You offer something and he'll accept it. Even Krishna will not accept it. So food should be prasadam should be cooked with the right mindset, with the right devotion, and in a very sattvic mood. Right? Only then the food becomes acceptable for Krishna. And we should also be careful that food are prepared in that. Even while cooking at home, it's not that you keep playing some news in the background, something loud is going on in the background, and you're cooking with fight within the husband wife on things, family matters. All these things should be kept aside. When you're cooking, just focus on the cooking, right? And as many times as you can, wash your hands between the cooking. Keep the kitchen clean while cooking. Not that, pile up things. Sometimes devotees' house, when you go, they are so focused on external preaching and everything, but their house becomes extremely, everything cluttered together. The kitchen, especially, is in the worst of state because they wait every day for the maid to come the next following day to clean the kitchen. So a devotee's house should not be like that. So remember that it's a house that in which the Lord stays, and all these things should be taken care of. But again, this verse is giving a very important message that when you're cooking and you're offering to the Lord, only then the sins in the food, any food that we have, be it vegetarian or non-vegetarian by default, but even vegetarian food has sins in it. The process of growing food by itself is a sinful process. When you're plowing the land to grow, sow the seeds, there's a lot of karma incurred, right? And later on, when you're cutting the plants, you're killing the plant, right? And removing and or you're removing the fruits. This is also a sinful activity because you're removing or you're hurting the plant in some manner, right? So there's reactions for sure, and the only way to remove sinful reactions even from vegetarian food is to by offering it to the Lord. And if Lord takes it, accepts it, then he removes all the sins and the food becomes transcendental then, right? Then we can consume it. So that's the only way, that's the only possible way to remove sins from our food. What does it say? Therefore, such devotees always perform yagnas in different modes of devotional service like Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Archanam. All these are yagnas. The 9 forms of devotion to the Lord is also yagna. So, reading about Krishna, discussing Krishna, attending classes, this is also yagna. Okay, and these performances of yagna keep them always aloof from all kinds of contamination of sinful association in the material world. Others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves but also eaters of all kind of sins. How can a person be happy if he is both a thief and a sinful? That is not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respect, they should be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtana Yagna in full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there can be no peace or happiness in the world. Okay, let's go to verse 14.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Annada bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhavah yagnat bhavati parjanyo yagna karma samudbhavah. Translation: all the living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagna, that is sacrifice, and yagna is born of prescribed duties. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, when we perform our prescribed duties as given in the Vedas, then because of that process of performing prescribed duties, then yagna is happening. And because we are doing the yagnas, rain is being provided on time. Not just rain, any kind of natural, anything that we depend on the demigods for, that is taken care of. Be it sun, rain, wind, right? All of it is taken care of. Or even Mother Earth, when she is being resourceful, that's because we are doing our yagnas, right? So this way, when rain comes, then food grains grow on time. Now here, food grains does not really mean only grains. It could mean fruits, vegetables. So whenever we eat something that is grown from the ground, okay, now even vegetables that grow on the ground, certain food that grow on the ground in the night especially must be avoided, like mushrooms especially go when there's thunderstorm, and you'll see that one night it's not there, one thunderstorm, then mushrooms grow in the night in the ground, and they are fixed to the ground level, right? So when something that grows in the night should be avoided. Similarly, because it's considered tamasic. Okay, and then there is garlic. Garlic is also tamasic, right? Similarly, there is onion. Onion is rajasic. So eating such kind of food will dull our brains to understand spiritual knowledge, right? It will take us further into sinful life. Similarly, some kind of dal, like masoor dal, that orange color dal, it's not consumed so much in South India, but I'm sure in North India is something that many people consume. But even that masoor dal is very high in their protein content, as high as meat, and hence it is to be avoided. Okay, so some sampradayas do not even have vegetables which is not exposed to direct sun, like carrots or ginger, something that grows under the ground, because they say they are tamasic. So there are acharyas, some sampradayas like the Sri Sampradaya, they will not have something that is growing under the ground, right? Um, it's each sampradaya has different flavors of what they can eat and what they cannot. So this verse is saying, by performing these prescribed duties, and because of that yagnas are happening, and because yagnas are happening, then rain, sun, moonlight, all of this are provided by the devatas, and because of this we're getting our food on time, anna on time. Okay, so rain is not just for food, but even any kind of natural resources, natural metals, gems underground, right? So when we perform all our prescribed duties, like the Mother Earth will take care, she'll absorb all the rainwater. And if the people are performing the yagnas, then these gems and precious metals are made available to the human beings. But if you're not uh, performing any yagnas at all, and we are acting thievely, then even the Mother Earth will make sure that these natural resources are not made available to the human being. She'll unmanifest it such that it's almost extinct, like it's happening in today's time. Um, so that's how nature works. When you take care of the demigods, then they take care of us. Uh, Give me a second. Uh, can you read from here, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic. Similarly, when food offered to Lord Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection, and one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness who eats only food offered to Krishna can counteract all reactions of the past material infections, which are impediments to the progress of self realization. On the other hand, one who does not do so continues to increase the volume of sinful action, and this prepares the next body to resemble hogs and dogs, to suffer the resultant reaction of all sins. The material world is full of contaminations, and one who immunized by accepting prasadam of the Lord, food offered to Vishnu, is saved from the attack, whereas one who does not do so becomes subjected to contamination.
You can
Should I?
continue reading, Mataji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food grains or vegetables are factually eatables. The human being eats different kinds of food grains, vegetables, fruits, etc. And the animals eat the refuse of the food grains and vegetables, grass, plants, etc. Human beings who are accustomed to eating meat and flesh must also depend on the production of vegetation in order to eat the animals. Therefore, ultimately, we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. The field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky, and such rains are controlled by demigods like Indra, sun, moon, etc. And they all are the servants of the Lord. The Lord can be satisfied by sacrifices. Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is the law of nature. Yagna, specifically the Sankirtana Yagna prescribed for this age, must therefore be performed to save us at least from scarcity of food supply. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Mataji.
So yagna comes because we are performing yagna. We then there will not be scarcity. So as Mataji read, offering the food is like taking a vaccine from sinful reaction. When we accept prasadam, then we are not subject to all the sinful reactions because of eating different kinds of food. But if we do not take this vaccination, then we immediately become subjected to the three modes of material nature. Okay, so yagna, specifically the Sankirtana yagna prescribed for this age, must therefore be performed to save us at least from the scarcity of food supply. So this is the yagna that one must do whenever you can. Chant the names of the Lord, sing the different names of the Lord. Right, come together and recite the different names of the Lord. That's the Sankirtana yagna. Verse 15.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Bhagavad
Hare
Gita
Krishna.
3.15. Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi Brahmakshara Samudbhavam Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yagne Pratishtatam. Translation: regulated activities as prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, all pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So in the previous words, we got to know that yagnas are happening because of doing up prescribed duties. Now, does the prescribed duties come from? They are coming from the Vedas, right? And Vedas manifest from the Lord Himself, and hence any act of sacrifice is transcendental in that sense. Okay, the four Vedas, they are coming from the breath of Brahma. And where does Brahma get his breath from? From the Supreme Lord. And hence, Vedas also come from the Lord. Right? Then the ingredients of the yagna, like the kusa grass or the sesame seeds, till as we call it, that is also coming from Varahadev. From his sweat, we get the sesame seeds, and from his hair, we get the kusha grass. So even the Lord, not just as prescribing the different yagnas, he's also providing the different ingredients to perform these yagnas. Right? Give me a second. Read from here, Prabhu.
The Vedas are therefore codes of working directions. Anything performed without the direction of Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take direction from the Vedas to be shaped from the reaction of the work. As one has to work in the ordinary life by the direction of the state, one similarly has to work under direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishwasitam Etad Yad Rigvedo Yajurvedaha Samvedaha Tharvan Girshaha. The four Vedas, namely the Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samveda, and Atharveda, are all emanation from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Brahadaranyaka Upanishad. Okay, so the Vedas, anything that is prescribed, not prescribed in the Vedas, is definitely giving us vikarma or sinful reaction. Okay, so that's what the in Kali Yuga especially, uh, what is prescribed for Kali Yuga is a Sankirtana yagna, right? No other form of yagna is prescribed for Kali Yuga. Now you might think that then fire sacrifice can't we do? We can do fire sacrifice, but that's not the prescribed form. For example, in Kali Yuga, animal sacrifice is completely banned, right? We cannot do animal sacrifices. Even when it comes to, even in Vedas, it's banned for Kali Yuga, right? Earlier, Brahmanas, when they used to do yagnas, in Treta Yuga or Satya Yuga, when they do animal sacrifices, the Brahmanas were so potent by the ucharan of these mantras, they could bring that animal back into, give it a next life. The animal is instantly elevated to human life by the form of sacrifice. So these brahmanas were authorized to offer horses and cows in sacrifice to a yagna. But our brahmanas today do not have such potency. So no animal sacrifice is allowed, or it's completely banned in Kali Yuga, especially. Now, there are five kind of yagnas which are actually, or five kind of activities which are completely banned in Kali Yuga. One is, of course, the animal sacrifice of any kind of horse and cow. Any animal sacrifice is banned. Even goats and chicken is banned, but especially horses and cows are banned completely. Okay, but maybe chickens and all that, you will find it in the tamasic yagna forms. Devi worship, you'll find it somewhere there mentioned. But irrespective, whichever form of yagna it is, horses and cows are completely banned. And then begetting children from the husband's brothers, that is also banned, right? And in Kali Yuga, especially, even sannyasa is not banned, because sannyasa is a very difficult process to follow, and Kali Yuga has many sense gratificatory activities. So especially in Kali Yuga, sannyasa is banned, but we have sannyasis in Kali Yuga, because these sannyasis are allowed if they take sannyasa for the sake of preaching alone. Okay, only for the sake of preaching, then they are allowed to take sannyasa. They are called as parivrajakaacharya, right? Sannyasis who roam all over and preach, right? So only for this reason, sannyasa can be taken. Otherwise, just to accept disciples and enjoy a very relaxed, renounced life, that is not allowed. So that kind of sannyasa is banned in Kali Yuga. Okay, and also offering flesh as oblation to forefathers. Earlier, when yagnas used to happen, when they offer animals, similarly, they could offer the same animal flesh to their forefathers, because they had the power to, sacrifice animal and give them a new life. But such offering of oblation of flesh to forefathers is also banned. I see many families today still doing it, but that is one of the banned activities in Kali Yuga. Okay, so that's how you understand it. So remember the three types of karma we spoke about. We spoke about pious activities, which is called karma. Then sinful activities is called vikarma, and Krishna conscious activities, or activities done to serve Krishna in the love of Krishna, that's called as akarma. So akarma will not give us sinful reactions. Okay, so just give me a second.
Mataji,
So
akarma
after
will not give even any reaction for that
any
matter.
reaction,
Yeah.
even good pious reaction will not come. Yes. So after creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of the material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home back to Godhead. We should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment, but the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. It is a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, conditioned souls must try to follow the process of yagna by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, and that will take the place of performance of Vedic yagnas or karmas. So the intent of yagnas are clearly described here. It is to satisfy our materialistic tendencies. When you're finally satisfied, then one fine day will say, okay, I'm done with trying to please my senses by performing these different yagnas. Let me just focus on what is absolutely required, and that way we'll be ready to go back to the Godhead at some point. So it's a way to satisfy when one can satisfy one's perverted desires, and then they can return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. So that's the intent of the Vedas, to enjoy to whatever permissible extent. Then beyond that, one should start thinking, get serious about how to go back to Godhead. Okay, verse 16.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Verse 16. एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरीन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति. Translation. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly lives a life full of sins. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain.
What is the cycle of sacrifice? Sacrifice, the whole process where you follow the Vedas. From Vedas we start doing our prescribed duties, and from there we do the yagnas, and from yagnas come rain, and from rain anna or vegetation grows, and that vegetation is in turn offered to the demigod in sacrifice, right? Or to the Supreme Lord in sacrifices. This is a cycle of sacrifices that we are constantly doing. And one who is living in like this, following the cycle of sacrifice, then and thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life. One who does not follow the in human life the cycle of sacrifice is living a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. Okay, can you read from here, Mataji?
By nature's law, this human form of life is specifically meant for self-realization in either of the three ways, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. There is no necessity of rigidly following the performance of the prescribed yajnas for the transcendentalists who are above vice and virtue. But those who are engaged in sense gratification trigger purification by the above mentioned cycle of yajna performances. There are different kinds of activities. Those who are not Krishna conscious are certainly engaged in sensory consciousness. Therefore, they need to execute pious work. The yajna system is planned in such a way that sensory conscious persons may satisfy their desire without becoming entangled in the reaction of sense gratificatory work. The prosperity of the world depends not on our own efforts, but on the background arrangement of the Supreme Lord, directly carried out by the demigods.
Hare
Therefore,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So this is a way for us to reduce our entanglement in material living, because one, it does not definitely give us any sins, this kind of yagnas. It gives us pious credit. It gives us sattva guna. So by this performance of yagna, then we are higher, we are becoming more pious, right? It is materially binding, of course, because even pious activities can bind us, karma can also bind us, but at least we are slowly elevating to the state of to the consciousness of being in sattva guna. And in sattva guna, it's more easier to surrender to the Supreme Lord, right? So this way, by following the cycle of a sacrifice, we are then getting ready to surrender to the Lord eventually. Okay, verse 17.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Text 17. Yastav atma ratir eva syad atma triptascha manava atmanye eva cha santushtas tasya Karyam na vidyate. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. Hare Krishna.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Now, after saying so much about karma kanda activities, Krishna is taking a U-turn here, right? He's saying for the one who is in the path of self-realization, they don't have to do any such prescribed duties or yagnas, right? So what is Krishna saying here? Mataji, if you could read this. If you can't, I will. A person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna conscious is no longer has any duty to perform. Due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within is instantly cleansed. An effect of many, many, many thousands of yagnas performed. By such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relation with the Supreme. His duty thus becomes self-illuminated by the grace of the Lord, and therefore he no longer has any obligations to the Vedic injunction. Such a Krishna conscious person is no longer interested in material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine, women, and similar infatuations. So we should be very clear that whatever karma kanda yagnas Krishna has been speaking about all this while are people who are in the lower modes of material nature, right? Who is not finding it easy to surrender to Krishna directly. And for them, Krishna is saying, do all these yagnas, do all these satisfied demigods, go through this path. But for people who are in the path of self-realization, he's saying you don't have to do all this. Right. So the Pancha Mahayagna that we spoke about, that is done for the Pitra, with that was done for the Devatas, Manusha, and other Jivas, that that is done in the mood of karma kanda, right? Yes, I have enjoyed material life so far, and in return, I will perform these yagnas to please the demigods. So sometimes the same mood is also transferred to Krishna, unfortunately, right? I will do this in return, you give me this, Krishna. Like these very famous Satyanarayana puja that we do. This is also a form of material yagna that we do, but fortunately, it's done for to Krishna himself, but it's also done with the mood of getting material prosperity, right? That is also karma kanda. And then sometimes we go to Tirupati and we say, I'll tonsure my head, Krishna, but in return, you should give me this or that. This is also business transactions with Krishna. So we are doing some service to Krishna, but in return, we are expecting something material out of it, right? So it's better than, but still these activities are better than doing some kind of sinful activities, right? So we don't have to disturb their processes, right? Let them do exactly what they're doing, right? This will eventually, in some lifetime, they'll reach a higher order of bhakti. So that's our mood. But as devotees we should know our dealings with this Lord is of a higher order. We don't deal with the Lord with, these material desires, give me this, give me that. We don't do that. So it's like we go to a temple, uh, our, um, a non-devotee or a materialistic person, their mood will be very different. They want materialistic things. They are going to a lot to beg for materialistic things. But for a devotee, when we go to the temple, our mood is completely different. We don't want any kind of material things. We are happy that we are finally having darshan of the Lord. We are happy to just stand in front of him and bow down. That's our mood. It's like and going to Lord and asking for material benefits is like going to Ambani and saying, "My, can you?" And Ambani is asking you, "What do you want?" And you're asking, "I need 50 rupees to pay for my auto charges." It's as trivial as that, right? So we should not be trivial. At least if Ambani is asking you what you want, think of something sufficiently worthy enough to ask, right? So if Krishna is asking you what you want, all we want is bhakti for him, devotional service. That's all we want. We don't want any material things. Don't ask for Krishna, take care of my health, take care of my, wealth, children. All these things will be taken care of. Whatever the karma that person has come with, that is what exactly they'll go through. So whatever suffering you're going through in life as a devotee, you should know that it's coming because Krishna has approved it already. So you don't have to go and tell Krishna, now that I'm going through this suffering, relieve it. Krishna also already knows that you're going through this suffering because that's coming from your past reaction. right? So when you're asking for devatas for material relief, you should also know that even if, materially some relief comes to you, but the sinful reaction is not gone, that will come to you in another life. So you'll have to live another life to live that reaction again. So it's instead of asking for all these petty things like material relief, it's better to ask Krishna directly for bhakti, just devotional service, so that he can remove us from the cycle of sinful living, right? So this is how, I think we are almost up for time. Are there any questions on anything that we discussed so far today's class?
Mataji, in this words you explained, there's a word called fully satisfied. So, what is the measure? How one can know whether he's fully satisfied with the services what he's engaged in? That's a difficult to. At any level to gauge this thing.
Here it's a little different, Prabhuji, because this is on the level of pure bhakti, right? Who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated. He is not interested in anything external, right? He's not looking for comfort in wealth. He's not looking for comfort in soft beds. He's not looking for, if I have this prasadam, then it's nice, or I do some service and somebody should recognize that I did this service. They're not looking for this kind of external benefits that come from working for Krishna. They're just happy because they have an opportunity to serve Krishna.
So when you have zero expectation from
Zero
the
expectations, like what Karma Yoga says, do your work with no desire to be the like, don't call yourself the cause of the action, and don't expect any desires or have any desires for the results of the action either. So that's a mood of working Krishna conscious also, right? They do because, and they're happy with whatever service they're doing, right? It could be cleaning the kitchen, it could be, doing some book distribution or going for Nagar Sankirtan with a group. Whatever they're doing, they're happy. And they may get recognized or not get recognized. That is also not a factor.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
I
Krishna.
wanted to just ask the 5 yagnas which were done. One is Pitru, Deva, Manushya, Bhuta, another one?
Brahma Yagna. That's reading
Deva,
scriptures.
okay. Deva Yagna is different and Brahma Yagna is different.
Yes. Brahma Yagna is understanding the supreme.
Okay.
Right. So when you're reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that is Brahma Yagna.
The demigods is Deva Yagna.
Deva Yagna.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, any other questions? Jai. So for people who are going on yatras next week, have a nice yatra. Please keep us in your prayers. And for next week, all 4 days, we'll have only Srimad Bhagavatam reading, since many devotees are on yatra next week. We'll not have the Bhagavad Gita classes. Instead, we'll have Srimad Bhagavatam reading all 4 days. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Jai. Vancha kalpataribhyascha kripa sindhubhyo च पतितनां भावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat pranam.
From devotees who are going for Mayapur
All
Yatra.
devotees assembled here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I'm closing the call for everyone.